Howdy YouTubers, this video will cover Brontlight's BT01. This is their latest release. This is a single cell AAA light. But before we get into this, I actually want to do a little preamble here. I don't know if you know, but typically the way that I have agreement with sponsors is that A, I get to say whatever I want, however I want. I will not change anything or hold back unless there is something wrong with the specs or something that's just plain wrong. I get to have full say over whatever I want, negative or positive. And because of that, certain sponsors actually have not agreed to provide products or they've shied away from it. And there are ones that have stuck around and, typically those are the ones that you see being reviewed on my channel. Brontelight, I don't have any background with them. This is the very first video that I'm making, but I gotta say, wow, kudos to them, man. I'm always really pleased with manufacturers that don't shy away if there's criticisms to be had, especially if it's constructive criticism or in case there's anything wrong. There's some manufacturers, like the moment even a tiny little thing's wrong, they're like, oh my gosh, don't do that, don't say that, whatever. These guys, so let me give you a little background. I will typically test the performance just to make sure it's within spec of what they claim it to be. They were very excited because they kind of felt like as the upstart kid, they have a little chip off their shoulder and, they have something to prove. Cool. I like that. I've always liked, the little guys taking on the big guys. Now, being that this is priced to be in slightly like the budget category, they felt they had a pretty solid product on their hands. And for the most part, I agree, with the exception of the performance. Now, how this came about is that during the course of my runtime testing, I'll usually take the lumens and compare it to my other readings. And this one was a bit off. But yet, despite sending it to them, raising concerns, they're like, you know what? I'm a little disappointed. They used a GP700 battery. I'll get into more of this later. But bottom line is that, and the response was like, you know what? Don't worry about the graph. Don't worry about the performance. Our customers deserve as objective as a review as possible. Go ahead and publish it. We'll deal with the engineers and their supplier as to what may be the cause of it. Again, I'll get into that later. So sit tight for that. But again, I just really, really want to highlight kudos, man. Serious kudos to Brontelight for that. With that out of the way, let's get into the packaging accessory. So, this light comes in this tin can that comes through with a see-through plastic case in the front to display the product. In terms of the accessory, it comes with 2 rubber O-rings, a keychain, and a little clip, plus the instruction manual. I've recreated the spec sheets that you can read here for yourself, so just simply pause it and then when you're ready to move on, unpause. Getting into the design and features, it's a AAA size light, not too different in terms of styling from, like, say, some of the recent lights I've reviewed, like Through Night's TI, TI High, and previously the TIS and TI. It's a twisty light, so you twist on and twist off to turn on the light as well as changing the modes. Right off on the business end, you see that there's a glass here, but it's not AR coated. It features an orange peel reflector, and there's that XP-G2 emitter behind there. And here's a close-up shot of that. Now the head does feature this knurling, which definitely does help. It's decently aggressive that it helps with the use of the light. And that knurling is also available on the round sides of the body. On the 2 flat sides is simply just their name, as well as the model number, including the battery polarity indicator. On the tail end, it's nice and flat, so you can use it on tail stand mode. And there is a hole here for the keychain, although I gotta say, that thing is extremely sharp. I bet you could probably shatter glass with this thing if you smack it at the right angle and hard enough. So that's definitely one thing I would like to see them change because, I guess if you use the included keychain, it may not be as big a problem because this may help obstruct this, but this will definitely poke you. And it's, like I said, it's fairly sharp. The included clip comes in very handy in the sense that you could attach it to the bill of a cap and use it as a makeshift headlamp. And because it does operate fairly smoothly, kind of use it single-handedly to turn on and off the light. This is great for handiwork around the house or especially when you're out camping. In case you don't have a headlamp, bam, there you go. Now the tension strength here is pretty good. It does clip on reasonably solidly, although if the bill of your cap is particularly thick, it may be at the borderline. So like say in this case of this particular cap, I could just simply snap it up like that. So just something to keep in mind. Now twisting the light off, it's just simply the PCB board as well as the cathode point. There is no physical reverse battery protection, and I don't believe there's an electronic one either. Taking out the battery, peering into the tube, there's a spring down there. And these threads are anodized but not square cut. Still, they operate fairly smoothly. And that's it. It's very short and simple for these AAA size twisties. If you've been following my videos, you'll know that the AAA form factor is not a particular favorite of mine, thus I don't have a huge collection. This is pretty much it. From left to right, BT01 through Night Christmas Edition, TI, and then this Yezo brand. This thing was always flaky ever since I bought it. I mean, if you want to talk about bad quality light, that's it right there. No longer functions. I had bought it for my wife, but it's a clicky light, tremendous size. It's almost close to a AA category, but anyway, digress. Nightcore's MT06, of course that's a double AAA size light, and last but not least, through Night TI4. So as you can see, BT01, most compact in my collection. In terms of the handling, the knurling does give it good track as mentioned, so it makes it relatively easy to operate this light. Although of course now that I do have it here, I do feel that sharpness digging into my hand, so again, not too crazy about that. I really hope they change the design of that to be like Manker's U11. As you can see, it has a nice rounded off edge here versus again this right corner cut. So operation is fairly easy. Obviously if you add a lighter grease, strobe probably is not as easy to operate, but overall just simple changing on off and changing modes pretty easy one-handed. The UI is very straightforward. Again, this is a twisty, so nothing really complicated about it. The default pattern is that it will always turn on to medium. There is no memorize mode. Then a twist on and off will go into high mode. Then last but not least, kind of like this very nice low mode. Now from any mode, if you quickly twist on and off twice, it'll go into the fixed rate strobe mode. And as mentioned, none of these modes are memorized. So this is it. This is what prompted my little preamble at the very beginning of this review. When I initially got the light, I tested it immediately with the Eneloop nickel metal hydride. This was their standard 800 milliamp an hour cell. But after I finished the run, it was a little disappointing. Even though I matched the time at 30 minutes, the output at 30 seconds was only 105 lumens, and even then still dropping fast, as you can see here. So I sent them the test results and say, hey, is this normal? And they said, yeah, it looks like something's a little off. So I'm reasonably confident with my calibration of my PVC LMD. I always calibrated ahead of each run, and it was done with a TI4 in low mode at 24 lumens, and that matched the other readings that I had for my other lights, so I was confident in that. Then they sent me a picture of one of their BT01s being tested in an integrating sphere, and sure enough, it matched 150. Then I asked, okay, what kind of cell did you use? They showed me it was a GP700 cell. So then I went out and I couldn't find that cell, but I ordered a GP800 cell, and I ran that, and look at that. So here's the thing. I've never witnessed a large difference in terms of nickel metal hydride cells. Yes, there are some, perhaps like say between the standard Eneloop and Eneloop Pro AA's, but again, not to the degree where, you know, it would cause the light to go from 120 to 150 or anything like that. But here you see that at 30 seconds with the GP800 cell, it's at 123.6 lumens. That was a nice jump. But more importantly, above and beyond that, you notice that it tries to maintain the output in a semi-regulated output here until finally it can't, then it dives down, resulting in this run here. That's rather strange. I've never seen that before. So I'm going to be on the hunt for that GP700 cell, but again, I need to highlight kudos to Bronte, man. They were like, you know what? It's fine. Don't worry about it. Our customers deserve a objective review as much as possible. Go ahead and publish it. No concerns. Meanwhile, they'll take this and address it with their engineers. So like I said, kudos, man. Hats off to you, Bronte. I'd be interested to see if I could get a hold of that GP700 cell, and then I'll rerun it and see if that makes any more difference. But in the meanwhile, if you guys ever seen this before, please, by all means, throw in some comments here. Now, to wrap this up, at the end of the run, the Eneloops were down at 0.81, the GPs at 0.85. I was able to match the runtime at 30 minutes. As mentioned, this is the output lumens that I captured on my PVC LMD. The average lumens for the Eneloop run was 65 lumens, and for the GP, a higher yield at 72 lumens. I didn't get to do the temperature, but it did get sort of warm. I'm guesstimating about 105 to 110 around that range, and because I had my fluke out for repair if you saw my other video. But anyway, that's the summary for the runtime. In terms of the overall beam profile, I do have the BT01 in the middle. On the left is Through Night's TI Christmas Edition with the XP-L emitter. And then on the right hand side, I have Through Night's TI4 also with the XP-G2 emitter. Of course, the output levels are not the same, so keep that in mind. This is not a apples to apples comparison, but it's more about the beam profile. So as you can see here, it has a relatively narrow width, but I have a feeling it's due to the thick bezel. Whereas the Through Night TI High definitely does have a more broader profile, as you can see here on the left-hand side. And the TI4 is comparable because it does feature the same emitter, although with an ever so slightly larger reflector. So thereby you do see a tighter hotspot versus the BT01s. I do have this in fixed exposure along with sunny white balance, and this beam profile and color is pretty true to what I'm seeing in real life. So I've opened up the aperture a little bit to capture the hotspot and the beam profile with the lights about equidistant from the target. And you can see that the tighter hotspot from the overhead shot translates directly to a smaller circle on the right hand side versus the BT01s, which has an overall floodier profile. I won't bother comparing it to the TI because that one runs an XPL emitter. So I've been pretty happy with the consistency of the beam measurements, so I no longer use the Xeno G10V2. Instead, I just go straight into the measurements. As typical, this is being shot on the Nikon D750, fixed exposure at 1/60 of a second, f2.8, ISO 800 with direct sunlight, white balance, and a flat profile. First up will be Bronte BT01. Now Bronte claimed a peak beam intensity of 513 candela. That should translate to 32 lux at 4 meters, which equates to 45 meter beam distance. Next up we have Through Night's TI Christmas Edition light. This was supposed to have a peak beam intensity of 506 candela, which should translate also to 32 lux at 4 meters. And I think I last measured this around 28 lux. Now one thing I've noticed is that the weather has warmed up a bit, and as you know, when the temperature increases, the output will decrease slightly, but even so, it's pretty consistent compared to what I measured last time again, which was around 28 lux. Last but not least, we have Through Night's TI High. This is the XPL High version, and they claimed a peak beam intensity of 711 candela, which should translate to about 44 lux at 4 meters. It's interesting to see that both of the Through Night titanium lights are taking a hit in performance due to the increased temperature. I think it's about a differential of about 15 degrees to 20 degrees since the last time I was measuring it here, because the weather has warmed up quite a bit here in the East Coast right now. Unfortunately, I don't have a thermometer, but I'm guesstimating that the ambient temperature is roughly about 74, 75 degrees. In the future, I'll start recording down the temperature because, again, that is really important to account for as well when you're taking into consideration these measurements. To summarize the throw of the 3 lights that I measured, so while the BT01 did disappoint a little bit in terms of the overall output, it did best the manufacturer specs in terms of throw. So again, to summarize, they quoted 513 candela, translates to 32 lux at 4 meters, and that's a 45 meter beam distance. I measured 39.6 between 30 seconds to 2 minutes, translates to 633 lux with a 50 meter beam distance. So the plot down here, red is what I measured, blue is what the manufacturer claimed. For the Through Night lights, they measured a little bit lower than what I measured each last time, and I think the heat really definitely affected the throw and the output. For the TI Christmas Edition, they quoted 506, translates to 32 lux, 45 meter beam distance. I measured 26.3, translates to 428 candela, and 41 meter beam distance. And last but not least, for the TI High, they claimed 711 candela, translates to 44 lux at 4 meters and 53 meter beam distance. I measured 39 and 624 and 50 respectively. So good job, Bronte. At least you are there in the throw category. Fit and finish wise, like I said, I've never handled a Brontlight before, and to be honest with you, I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. If it's Brontelight or Brontlight, I'll find out. But this finish, although it is hard anodized, I feel it's more of a HA2 than HA3. I'll find out and put it into the comments, but again, overall quality, I have no qualms. The threads, while not square cut, do operate very smoothly, and all of the surface and finishes are quite good. Now, the laser engraving, it is a little mottled, and again, the only reason I ever highlighted it is just overall quality control. Does that impact the performance of light in any way? Of course not, but still, like I said, overall quality control. All of the edges are very nicely deburred. There are no issues, and I don't notice any missing anodization between those knurlings, so overall, quite good, not bad at all. As like an upstart kit, they're pricing this pretty aggressively. If I'm not mistaken, I think it's $13.95 currently on Amazon.com. It does also come in 3 other colors. As you can see here, there's pink, gray, and blue. And I like the fact that they've got this hunger to take on the established manufacturers, but as I've highlighted in the runtime section, they're going to look into why this particular light didn't perform properly. Now, I have no reason to doubt their claims because they did send over pictures of proof of their testing in the integrating sphere along with the sample of the battery they use. I guess, again, as I highlighted in the runtime section, it is sensitive to the current that's being able to supply by the battery. I've actually never experienced that huge a difference between AAA nickel metal hydride cells. I have noticed obviously the difference, like say IMR versus a standard lithium cobalt, but in terms of nickel metal hydrides, never seen a huge degree. So I'm really curious about that GP700 battery that they used, and I'm going to be on the hunt for one. But if you're considering the purchase of this light, I have no reservation in terms of like say their dedication, that commitment that they have to wanting to improve their products. And if I'm not mistaken, I think they've actually been around for a little while, although not as well established as some other names like Sunway Man, Through Nine, Nightcore, etc., etc. But still, it's good to see that they listen to customer feedback, they're hungry, and they're willing to take on a challenge. So if you are considering the purchase of this light, I don't have any reservations recommending it, provided that, again, you're educated by this video, the fact that I was not able to match the output, even if I did match the total runtime. Also consider the fact, at the risk of beating a dead horse here, that sharp corner, if it's not going to be an issue for you, great, go ahead and get this light. As part of FTC disclosure, the BT01 was provided by Brontlight for review. Thanks again for watching.